All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Paperboard Podcast, episode Respass. What episode are we on?
26.
I'm just trying to pretend like we didn't have a technical difficulty the first time around, and this is not our second take. Welcome to episode 26 of Paperboard Podcast with your boys, Respass, Peach, and Walt. Respass, again, we're on take 2, but I already asked you once. How you doing today?
I'm a little less fantastic, but still, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back for a normal episode.
Yeah, we're back to the norm. It's weird having you guys here for me to do the intro port, because I think the last 2 or 3 episodes I did it myself. I forget. So, Peach, how you doing today, bud?
I am here.
I think that's going to be our first piece of merchandise. I was just going to say I am here.
Should I do this over again on take 2 and say, I'm pretty sure that is more than what Peachy said on the last episode?
Yes, you can, because
okay.
We heard the joke twice, but the audience will only hear it one time. Yeah, so since I forget most of the jokes we made now on the first take, let's jump into our topic this week, since we're back to normal. Whoa. Oh,
last week.
That's right. I forgot about that one. This one wasn't a joke. I did want to say a quick thank you again to Mr. Paul Laporte of Book It, the wrestling card game, for coming on last week for that interview he did with us. This is what I remember saying. Thank God we did not have technical difficulties last week. And
it was probably the most fun that we've had. You know, at least the two of us. Probably Peachy too, because I'm almost positive he did not say a word. I don't think he said a word when I showed up to your house until it all ended.
Well, I don't think he realized you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're small and sneaky like that. No, so yeah, thank you to him. Thank you. I'm excited for when the game comes out, Respass, because then since you backed it, we'll be able to play it, which I'm always looking forward to playing new board games. And I'm hoping he swings down at PAX Unplugged when we end up going down there, Peach, for that weekend. So, with that being said, let's jump into what our topic is going to be this week, and it's probably going to be a topic on a lot of different wrestling sites and all that fun stuff, but All In was just this past weekend. The bet from Meltzer to Cody basically saying that an independent show couldn't sell out 10,000 seats. They did it, and they did it in style. I said this, and I still stand by it in our first take, but we're going to go over the whole card, but just to kind of give our general overviews first, and kind of building up to it, what it meant. I didn't see this written anywhere, so it might have been, but to me, All In has done what I think WrestleMania 1 did for professional wrestling, meaning the impact that it had on the culture and everything going on in the world. It's a pretty bold statement, I think, considering what WWE has turned into because of that WrestleMania 1, but I think that's how big of an event this was, especially now looking back at it after the pay-per-view. Respass, what were your thoughts on it? What do you think of that statement? Bold statement?
It is just as bold now as it was the first time you said it. But I tend to agree with you, and I know you didn't necessarily agree with me the first time I said it, but I will say it again. I felt like it had just as big of an effect. I shouldn't say just as big, but when it was announced than just when it happened, because I feel like that the G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden, I don't know that necessarily happens without this, without the fact that it sold out and everything as quickly as it did. I don't know that you get that. So I think it had an effect already before it happened, where I would assume WrestleMania 1 needed to happen. You needed to see it before it had that effect. But All In, I think in the overall grand scheme, after it happened, is going to have. I would tend to agree with you. The ripple effect from it.
you bring up the G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden. I was on the fence about trying to get tickets to it since it's sold out already. After All In, I am pretty sure I'm going to make sure I go to it. Because the way... If Ring of Honor copies anything from that All In, and, there was a lot of Ring of Honor used within the All In product, if it copies any of that, like production value, match quality, any of that stuff, it's going to be incredible at Madison Square Garden. And I think it's a must-go now for me. I was on the fence, and more so just because we're trying to go up to WrestleMania the very next day. I kind of wanted to not do 2 nights in a row going up and down from New York.
Right.
But I think after that, it's almost a must-go for me. And that's a lot for me to say because I always like watching NXT the night before now as like the precursor to the WrestleMania weekend.
Well, that's it. I will give Jared Culver, who's been on the show with us before, credit. He did kind of push. Well, he pushed for All In. He pushed for us to pay 10 times the amount to get to All In. But he did mention about the G1 Supercard. And I actually, if you remember correctly, Walt, I said we should do it. And it didn't materialize. But the All In thing, I kind of regret it.
I do. Like, it sucks that we didn't go. But I think, like, at the cost that it looked like it was starting to... Now, like, the thing that sucks is if we would have waited till the last minute, it looks like tickets were under $100 for some of the cheap seats.
Yeah, like if we would have just planned out the rest of the trip and then just kind of struck for tickets when we could have. But if we would have done it early, too, it would have been pretty close to that cheap, if you remember right. I know it's cheap when you consider how much the original ticket prices were, but...
Yeah, it was hard. Like, I didn't know what it was going to was. I regret not going, but it was still... it was absolutely incredible card. So, kind of full disclosure with it, I did not. I paid for it off of Fight TV. I paid the full $40. I think they definitely deserved my money there. Respass, we won't talk about how you watched it. Peachy, we won't talk about how you watched it either.
For lack of watching it.
I was going to play off, Walt. Like
real fast. Let's real fast. Let's Peachy, from kind of an outsider's perspective, and you've heard us. You've been in the group chats talking about All In and us going to it. What were your general thoughts on it? Probably not knowing a lot of the kind of maybe the full reasoning behind it, why it was such a big deal, as big of a deal as kind of we were making it to be. Just kind of those thoughts on it.
Like it being an indie show, that indie show selling 10,000 seats rather than, the 2,000 seat, for a big show for them. Like, I don't know what kind of question are you asking.
What are your thoughts on it? So
I don't care. I don't watch independent wrestling.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure him not understanding the question kind of answers the question in a weird way.
Okay,
right, so I realize it's people like it. The only way I relate to it is it's guys that were in the WWF that aren't in the WWF.
Okay, that's. I mean, it sucks to hear that.
It's another NXT, another developmental before you get called up to WWF.
After this weekend, I think it's not a developmental. I think not All In, but it just shows that it's an alternate. Like, you don't have to go to WWE. And I think this showed it.
I don't think anybody, like, talent-wise has to go to WWE, but that's where the money's at.
Again, I can disagree with that. If this starts, like, this is where I came in and said this is the WrestleMania 1 of kind of this independent scene, is that this now has the chance of blowing, that you can make money on the independent scene.
Who was the promotion for All In?
No one. Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
So
it was
just two independent wrestlers.
Three.
But yeah, they paid for it out of their own pockets. That was the point of it. And
That was
I guess if anything, Peach, you're proving the point that maybe me and Walton are misspeaking a little bit when we say the magnitude this has. I think on the wrestling business, as far as the above average wrestling fan, I mean, I would consider me and you, Walt, to be relatively hardcore wrestling fans. But maybe not at the point that some people know, some of these guys that I've seen some guys wrestle by watching All In for the first time. I've heard of their names.
I'm above average. I would not say myself hardcore. Just because similar boat as you, some of these names I knew of, and I've seen little bits and pieces just because I'm on the internet. Just for like Joey Janela. Sorry. I have never seen him wrestle, but I know he has like some spring break like wrestling show up in New York, I think, every year. That's like a big hardcore fest. He was on there's a couple other podcasts that I listen to. There's this wrestling show that just came to Amazon Prime called Dojo Pro that he's a member of the roster for that. And like I recognize some of the names on there, but never really watched their matches. MJF, who was in the opening match of All In, I recognized him from there as well as some other things. Matt Cross, I actually seen wrestle before. He was at House of Hardcore WrestleMania weekend. Some of the guys we didn't talk about like the we had talked earlier. I didn't get a chance to see the WGN 0 Hour or Zero. Is that what was 0 Hour?
Yeah, it's called 0 Hour.
0 Hour content. Like there were people in the Battle Royal that I've seen wrestle, but I don't know a whole lot about. But I think just to kind of go back to Peachy's point, it sucks to hear that, but like that's probably 80% of the wrestling fan base out there.
Yeah,
Peachy's opinion is.
Yeah, and I would agree. That's what I said. If anything, that just kind of gave us information because we as like I said, the only way I can describe it is above average wrestling fans. I'd call Peachy more the casual fan than me and you. But I think that shows it that we might have the blinders on of people who want wrestling to thrive, and not to say that casual wrestling fans don't want it to thrive, but I mean, you know what you know, you like what you like, and you almost need to be proven more than one show, I guess. So I see this as being an upturn, like you said, Walt. I do. I see this as being an upturn, and maybe a year from now, a year and a half from now, Peachy might have a different tune. But maybe it's still too early. You're almost looking at it at the foreshadowing what this is going to affect, and it hasn't done it completely yet.
I think Peachy will have a different turn because of us, not because of him. Like, Peach, you kind of agree with that? Like, I don't see you necessarily going out of your own way to watch some of this stuff that's not involving either Mike or myself saying, hey, watch this, or hey, we're going to this wrestling thing type stuff to tag along.
Right, but like it's still going to be like going to live events versus like I can't watch it during the week at night, so it's not like I'm going to see the New Japan Pro stuff that's going on. I can watch.
Actually, with your work schedule, you'd be better fit to watch the New Japan stuff than watch the New Japan stuff live than.
And I will interject in with this a little bit because my work schedule is worse. I would consider me working 11 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning. I don't watch a lot of shows live. I can't. I mean, outside of possibly us watching pay-per-view together at Walton's house, I don't remember the last time I watched a full wrestling show live. NXT I watch every week. I love watching NXT. It's easier because it's an hour a week.
And there's time on the network.
I'm able to watch it whenever I want, and that's helpful. If I get some time at work or at home, and it's just an hour. But I keep track of what's going on in the wrestling world, and maybe you'll get to that point if things start interesting. But again, doing this show, like you said, well, it's almost unfair for me to say that to compare you to other casuals if you're doing this with us for another year, 2 years, whatever.
You know who I'm curious about? Like, to get their I think it's a good level set or a very good meter. Fico.
Yeah.
I think Fico's the standard bearer for this because he is more of the casual fan. He's not. He'll join us for a couple episodes here or there just because he knows a little bit. He likes doing stuff like this, but he has no real interest in it. But he does have an outside interest because he has a couple friends that are involved in it. So I think he would do it. So just to kind of wrap up overall opinion of this, because I do want to get into all the matches, and it was a lengthy match card. I would like All In, and this was said I think early on when All In was first announced. I want All In to become the independent wrestling scene's WrestleMania.
Does it stay in Chicago?
I would like to see it move around. That's just straight jealousy because I want to have one in Philadelphia. You have the Leah Kors Center, which is the exact, basically I would say same venue as the Sears Center that was in Chicago. Would be a perfect spot for it down here. Philadelphia is obviously a great wrestling town. You'd have a very similar, but I do like that idea of it being in Chicago and just kind of staying there, just as its home base. But I would like All In to become the WrestleMania to where it's the biggest independent wrestling show of the year, and it pulls in from all the promotions. Like this one, you had Ring of Honor, New Japan, Lucha Underground, Impact. I would have liked to see some WWE involvement. I would have really liked to see a WWE guy on there for WWE to acknowledge it. It would have been awesome to see Goldust there just to support Cody. With this current storyline in WWE, it would have been great for Kevin Owens to show up there. But
I truly, I believe that it may get to that point. You may not see it next year, but I believe if this goes in a trajectory that we're thinking it will. I know it's too big of a word for me to try to spit that out.
You're trying to sound like me.
But I could see that getting to that point where if this gets to the level that we think it might, I could see them, with them already kind of doing that in a lower type level of having guys jump on other shows and stuff like that.
Yep.
I could see it getting there.
I could see it when Triple H kind of fully takes over, I can see him allowing it. And again, you don't do any of you don't have John Cena show up or Roman Reigns. No. You have Kevin Owens would have been perfect. Honestly, with the storyline that they have going on in WWE, you send Kevin Owens out to that. It would have been a perfect setup for it. But I'm also glad it didn't because it didn't need the WWE tie-in. I was just blown away by how awesome it was.
Right.
So let's kind of jump into matches because we're going to continue to just talk about it. So, Respass, I was not able to watch the 0 Hour on live. I thought it was going to be a little tirade about the 0 Hour, which I really love, especially for the world we live in today. I could not watch it live. I was hungover and asleep when it was happening. And actually, I don't think I have WGN America. So, I could not watch it live. I thought when I bought the pay-per-view on Fight, I was going to be able to watch it there. But it wasn't part of the package. Like, you know how on, you can watch the pre-shows on the network, but it's also on, YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be something similar. So I completely missed it. There's no way for me to watch that. I'm upset because I wanted to watch the Battle Royal, but I can't, and I really like that. You don't get that anymore in the world today, to where, you missed out.
Yeah.
You had, obviously I can probably download it or something like that, but it's not as readily available for me as part of, a normal viewing.
Right.
And I really like that. It may sound dumb, but, it's, I missed out on it. So, I'm like, this sucks. I just have to watch highlights from somewhere else or, little clips. I can't just watch it straight through. So, Respass, you were able to watch it. Let's start with the first match, it looked like, of the night. It was SoCal Uncensored, SCU, defeats the Briscoe brothers. How was that match?
I mean, it was as good as you expect. I've actually, I may be wrong in saying this. I don't know that I've ever seen Scorpio Sky wrestle before.
I think I have. I think he's been at one of the. I've seen some SCU matches. I forget which ones. I've seen the three of them do a triple threat match before, or not a triple threat, 6-man before, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like the last time that I seen either Kaz or Christopher Daniels, they were still teaming up together. I don't think Scorpio Sky was with them the last time I seen them. So it was a new element. It was awesome. I don't know how much you've even seen of
I've
the results of it or anything. Kaz and Scorpio Sky, they came out dressed as, I guess their outfits were inspired by Rocky. It was Rocky and Apollo Creed, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Kaz came out in a black and black and gold kind of robe, and Scorpio Sky came out, and all red, white, and blued out. That was really cool.
I'm going to say this throughout the entire episode. The storytelling they did in this entire pay-per-view was beautiful. So the last episode of Being the Elite, they were at the Rocky Steps because it was in Philly. Ring of Honor was in Philly, and they were at the Rocky Steps, and all three of them ran up the Rocky Steps. So that tie-in is.
I didn't know that. And I personally love the Briscoe brothers.
Briscoe brothers are one of my favorite tag teams. They're just a solid tag team.
Yeah,
they got tag teams wrestling down to a T.
Actually, this match, and I did not know the match order going into the night. Even when I watched it, I watched most of it, if not all of it, today, which today is Monday, September 3rd. But when I seen this match was first, I already kind of figured who the winner was going to be. Selfishly, I wanted the Briscoe brothers to win. But it was as good of the match as you expected it to be. Scorpio Sky is very athletic. Like I said, I didn't really know much about him, so this match was mostly, an eye opener for him. For me about him. But Kaz, Briscoe brothers, they're always really great, in the ring, and it was almost the perfect way to start off the night, especially on something where if they are trying to sell this card, where you're watching it for free and you're trying to sell it. I mean, it was a perfect tag team match to kind of start the night off with.
That is good to hear. So, like I said, SCU ended up winning that match. So then it looks like the second match of the pre-show 0 hour was the Battle Royal, where the winner gets a shot at Jay Lethal for the Ring of Honor Championship on the main card. And in a surprise twist of events, because he was not booked on the show, Flip Gordon won the Battle Royal by last eliminating Bully Ray. Sorry. How was the Battle Royal? I heard or read online that it was probably one of the best booked Battle Royals, ever.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean,
So going in, there was a lot of thought that it was Flip Gordon was not actually announced for the Battle Royal. He came in, I want to say, as maybe Chico or something was his name.
Chico El Luchador.
Okay, so that's what he came in as, with a mask on, and I guess when it was the last 2 or 3 people, the mask got pulled off. It was revealed to be Flip Gordon.
Right.
Going into the match, a lot of people thought that, including myself, Colt Cabana was going to win, just because they're in Chicago. Colt has a real big following now, especially because of the CM Punk stuff going on, to where he's not, he's suing Punk for legal fees and all that stuff. And Colt Cabana is a love child of Chicago. So, how was the Battle Royal, Respass?
I was going to say, you should let the person who actually seen it talk about it.
Well,
Chico El Luchador, actually, funny enough about the whole thing, at the very beginning, Bully Ray put him through a table. So you don't see him from the very beginning of the match until the end. Yeah. So that was very well done. You know, you seen it happen, and you're like, okay, that's why they put this guy in the match. You know, they put some random guy in here to put over Bully Ray, and you almost forget about him, and that's why it was booked so well. The person I was most excited to see in the match, because I'm writing an article about certain young independent stars that I would love to see make their way to NXT, which should be coming out in the future. But I've done a lot of research actually on Jordan Grace.
That was the girl, right?
Yeah.
I heard she had a amazing showing.
Yeah, and it was a little. I want to say I was a little disappointed because she was not really involved with most of the match, at least not what they showed on TV, which made for her moments near the end that much better, I guess. But selfishly, I wanted to see what they were going to do with her in the match. But overall, they hit their spots. You know, they had you had Hurricane Helms. He hit some choke slams. There's a lot of guys in this match I didn't know. Unfortunately, there was a Punishment Martinez.
Yes, your Ring of Honor television champion.
And
he's good.
And Brian Cage.
Brian Cage is. I love Brian.
Yeah.
So I saw Brian Cage. He was at the last House of Hardcore.
Right.
For their, I think, TV championship, or I forget what the title was that he was in the tournament for. Man, he's got a good look. I like him a lot.
And he's actually one of the people I have seen before, but there was a spot where it was him and Punishment Martinez kind of, I'm assuming they both used the choke slam, and they kind of went back and forth on trying to grab each other's throat. And then what happens? Hurricane Helms makes his way over and choke slams both of them. It was great. It was perfectly done. You know, you're watching it like, oh my god, they're putting these two monsters against each other. You had I'm probably going to screw up their tag team name, Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta, the Best Friends.
Best Friends.
They had spots with them, you know, and they did it right. You know, Helms got his spot, gets eliminated. You know, the Best Friends, you know, they hug it out, they get eliminated. You had a Cheeseburger, you know, he gets his spots, then he gets eliminated. It was nicely done. Billy Gunn. You don't realize how big Billy Gunn is until you see him in the ring with all these guys. When you see him in the ring with all these guys, he was like... Because Moose, I've always thought was really big, and he seemed to almost... When you had him near Billy Gunn, Brian Cage, stuff like that, he didn't look as big as what I remembered. But yeah, it was really good. I believe the Final Four, or at least what they teased to be the Final Four, was... There was Colt Cabana, Jordan Grace, Bully Ray, and I hate the fact that I'm not even remembering who the other one was. It may have been Billy Gunn. I don't remember. But they teased it might have been Brian Cage, because they had Jordan Grace like actually have Brian Cage up on her shoulders, and she tried to squat him, and she couldn't. Like she had him up, and she tried to get him back up, and it didn't really work. But I believe, if I remember right, she slammed him at one point, and it was her and Colt Cabana did the "What's Up" headbutt to Bully Ray.
They did? Oh,
yeah.
That's funny.
And I believe Bully Ray... See, I believe Bully Ray eliminated Grace, and then Bully Ray eliminated Cabana. And then, you know, so the fans, you know, you see Cabana and Bully Ray, and you're like, oh, they're going to do it. It's in Chicago. And then Bully Ray eliminates him. But there's no bell. You know, it's the typical, wait a second, why aren't they ending this? And he's just standing in the ring. And then in comes Chico, El Luchador, comes in, eliminates him, reveals himself to be Flip Gordon, you know. And that long storyline of Flip trying to get all in has finally paid off. So... I'm sure at the moment you're like, how didn't they let Colt Cabana win? Like, it was so set up for it, and you know they did it perfectly to almost swerve you to like, oh, well, it's going to be Colt Cabana, and then it's not. You're like, Bully Ray, Like, really? Bully Ray?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and then having Flip Gordon kind of make his way in there was a nice touch.
Yeah, nice. So Flip Gordon won that, and he got a Ring of Honor title shot later in the evening. So let's move on to the main card. Pete, you have any comments or thoughts on the pre-show?
It sounds awesome.
That is great. Again, like I like that I missed it, and there's no real easy way for me to legally watch these two matches. Just like the way that we live, and the Battle Royal sounded awesome.
It was. I was very excited for it, and it was definitely awesome. It was one of my probably top 3 favorite moments. You know, especially that end there.
Wow.
I would say of the night, and I think that says a lot.
Yeah, especially with the way we run down. So, all right, so the first match of the evening was kind of, to me, took me a little by surprise. So I was able to watch this part live. Matt Cross versus MJF. I've seen Matt Cross wrestle at House of Hardcore. He's a 20-year-old, not a 20-year-old. He's a 20-year veteran of pro wrestling. Small guy, does a lot of flips, but really strong. It was a good match. It was a good, solid match. MJF is basically a more PG-13 R-rated Miz, I think. Yeah. He's got that attitude. He's better than you type of. He's that kind of persona. But he's good. I like him a lot. So I watched the whole Nightmare Family or the Cody Rhodes kind of the documentary on All In, and this MJF was kind of his one like really independent guy that he wanted to have on the show. With stuff, so it was just a really odd match, like not huge names starting off the show, kind of like, you know, how WWE does like the Intercontinental title match first or things like that. But it was a great match to kind of start the show off, just from a technical standpoint. Matt Cross ended up getting the win. Nothing. I don't think there was a lot of storylines. I think just kind of a one-off match and kind of go on from there. I am curious to see what happens with MJF. I think he's going to be relatively big, especially with his persona. I think the way his look, all that stuff, it's really going to work out in his favor.
Yeah.
So Respass, any thoughts on it?
Anything
additional?
But it's funny. I kind of was trying to rush watching all of these matches, and I had a couple matches in my mind that I was going to skip through, and I ended up watching it more because of what you said about MJF. I had never seen him before. I was very interested in watching him wrestle. But I'm going to go against what you say. Well, you said it's different than what WWE does, and I think that's a good thing. Everything they did here, that first match of 0 Hour was comparable to the first match you would get in a WWE show, not in the pre-show. I love the fact that you got the SoCal Uncensored and Briscoe Brothers on the pre-show, as opposed to Matt Cross and MJF on the pre-show, because you want something that's going to kind of tease everybody in. And the fact that the Battle Royal was done so well, that tag team match was done so well, it's a nice lead-in. And now you're sitting there watching the show, you're not going to turn it off on the very first match. And like you said, the names are not at the level of everybody else. So now you're just, to me, that it sucked me in, and I wasn't even watching it live. I was just like, let me see these guys for a little bit. And I ended up watching the whole match, and I was a little surprised because this was one of the 2 matches I thought I was going to skip through.
Yeah, this match probably, like, to me, this was probably the match that didn't need to be on this card the way everything was set up. But I'm glad it was. These guys both got showcased really well. They both looked phenomenal afterwards. So, excited going forward. Second match of the evening, Christopher Daniels versus Stephen Amell. I'll let you start this one. What were your thoughts on it?
I mean, I don't know that I was all that. I'm not going to say I wasn't impressed with Stephen Amell. I was impressed with Stephen Amell. Is it sad for me to say that I expected more out of it? I don't know why. I don't know why I expected more out of it, but I did. this might have been one of those matches that I watched and I was a little tad bit disappointed, just tad.
I was not so I was disappointed watching. So this is where it shows Stephen Amell is not a wrestler, and he blew up very early in the match. You could tell he was just out of breath. He was not dude's a specimen. The common joke is I talk about guys' bodies on this show. Jesus Christ, he's amazing. But he was not conditioned for a wrestling match. You kind of saw it when when he came back against Cena at Mania. He blew up and very early on, which I think hindered the match. And to me, when I saw that, I always get nervous with that, especially with these actors, these guys that don't wrestle that often, because I'm like, this is how someone gets hurt.
Right.
And I believe Christopher Daniels broke his neck somewhat recently, and some of the moves they were doing, I didn't want to see that happen. Amell went through a table, kind of typical spots for a singles wrestler. I think Amell has
the Green Arrow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. There you
go. He wrestled. This was his third match. He wrestled one in Ring of Honor. It was a tag team match. I don't know who it was with, honestly. But his first match was with Neville versus Stardust and Wade Barrett in WWE, and he looked good there. I think he has this. He looks on a very similar scale to me to Ronda Rousey on his progression.
Yeah.
He looks good. If he decided to give up acting today and go into professional wrestling, he could be a legitimate wrestler in less than a year, I think. And this match was, I think, exactly what it needed. It was a gimmick match with some star power in Stephen Amell. I'm glad this show had that type of match.
Right.
And it was exactly what it needed to be, I think. I think it over-delivered a little bit, but it was just the exact match it needed. Christopher Daniels looked awesome. He really shows how much of a general of the ring he is.
And I don't want to sound like I was disappointed with Stephen Amell in the match as much. I felt like it was like what you said with Rousey's progression. They gave you a taste, but I know Rousey's coming in at full time. So it might be selfish of me to expect more, but I don't know that I'm ever going to see Stephen Amell wrestle again. You know, and that's where it might be more selfish. I want to see a little bit more out of him, and maybe it was the Jerry Lynn as a referee part of it that kind of, I don't know, maybe threw the match off for me a little bit. There was just something about the match that I couldn't pinpoint it completely, but I wanted more out of it. And like I said, maybe it was the Jerry Lynn involvement.
I was going to say, it might have been also with Stephen Amell blowing up, because there was a point where I saw where he just became out of breath, and he was done. And that's where it went a little slower. He had to kind of take his time doing stuff to kind of get things going. But yeah, so Daniels beat Amell. That was the right thing that needed to happen. I'm glad they didn't have the celebrity win in this case, especially against Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
After the match, they embraced, which is exactly what needed to happen.
If it was WrestleMania, Stephen Amell would have won.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that's what didn't happen.
And this was the first match that I would say it wasn't like a pandering to the crowd type of win. Because All In's not really furthering storylines as much, because you got a lot of people from different companies, and it's kind of like set up to kind of culminate here, so you expect a lot of the faces, a lot of the crowd favorites to win. I was happy to see that they had Daniels beat Amell.
Well, I think in this case, in Chicago, Daniels is probably the crowd favorite over Amell.
Yeah, I would say that, but again, like Peachy said, WWE, the celebrity's going to go over.
Exactly. So the third match on the main card of the night. This is a lot for me to say. This might be my favorite match of the entire event. It was the Fatal 4-Way, or I forget exactly what they were calling, four-corner survival match, the women's. Tessa Blanchard, Chelsea Green, Madison Rayne, and Britt Baker. I thought this was the match that over-delivered for me. They all. I want Tessa Blanchard in WWE for a match with Charlotte Flair because I think that right there is the pinnacle of women's wrestling right now. I think she is absolutely incredible in the ring. She looked like a star in this match. They all looked like stars. Chelsea Green looked amazing. Like all the tie-ins. So Britt Baker came out to Adam Cole's music, his independent music, because they're dating, which is awesome to see. Again, it kind of sucks, hopefully they don't, break up or anything like that. They're dating, so it's probably going to happen because it could put a little bit of a sour note on that entrance. But I think that was awesome. Chelsea Green, who's dating Zack Ryder, did the woo-woo-woo with the corner kick, which was a great callback. I saw some of her stuff in Impact, and she looked like the star of that match, but, Tessa Blanchard also looked... It over-delivered for me. Especially, this was the pinnacle. It showed what women's wrestling really is. So, what are your thoughts? Because I could gush about this probably for another 5 minutes.
You might have to. I'm pretty sure I lied to you when we talked a little bit before the show. I
watch this?
I said that I needed to skip through, so I got a good feel. I skipped through this match, and you're making me hate myself for skipping through it a little bit. Not to say... Just from looking down the card, it was one match that I love Tessa Blanchard. The little bit I seen, I agree with you. Chelsea Green stood out in that match more than anybody else. I didn't watch it fully through, but I kind of jumped here and there just to see little tidbits. Madison Rayne looks as good as ever. I mean, she was athletic as hell. Anytime I was skipping to something, she was all over the place. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I remember her being that athletic in TNA.
Yeah. Plus the other thing too is you have to look at Madison Rayne. She's in the Mae Young Classic.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing about this. Yeah.
Where it she was to me I think she was the veteran of the match, if we were to have, the Mickie James of the match or something like that, to where it's definitely worth a watch, worth to go back and watch. But this was the match this was probably going to be my bathroom break match, if anything, and I'm glad I sat through and watched it.
Yeah, I'm happy you told me that. I expect there was 3 matches I had not seen in full. For full disclosure, there's 3 matches I had not seen in full. One of them I fell asleep on, unfortunately. But I expected to go back and watch his matches in full after the fact. It just we were a little time crunched here, and I just never found the time.
Yeah. So Tessa Blanchard ended up winning that. I don't think there was nothing on the line there or anything like that.
No, she didn't even come out with the title or anything.
Yeah, that is one complaint I kind of had about this, is that it didn't seem like a lot of these guys came out with their respective titles from the various promotions. I really wish they would have did that to kind of help promote the other independent scenes. So come out with the Impact title. I think Don Callis talked a little bit about Impact, but not as much as you would expect.
I think it would stand out the importance of each wrestler too a little bit for the people who don't necessarily know who they are, to see them coming out with a belt. You're like, oh wait, this guy's a champion somewhere. I wonder where he's a champion. Yeah, there was that moment when I seen Blanchard come out without a title. I was like, I thought she just won the Impact Women's title. That would have been a nice thing.
And Omega didn't come out with the IWGP Heavyweight. It's Kenny Omega, so he doesn't have to, but it would have been nice for, more I'm thinking of you, Peach. You kind of see this guy come out with a belt, and you're like, all right, I guess he's a bigger deal because he has a championship belt around him.
Yeah.
And kind of just asking more, where's he the champion in? Okay, I like this guy, let me go find him there. But that's kind of besides the point. But speaking of championship belts, our first championship match of the night was next. Cody against Nick Aldis for the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. A throwback name using the Worlds.
Now, before you get into this, was it just me, or this made it feel 1,000% like an independent show? It was the mid-card main event almost. You know how they try to do that? They split it up, but they got the little intermission. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it felt set up like an independent card for having the co-main event in the middle.
yeah, I guess I never thought of it like that. So my whole thought process. So just so before we go into it, Cody ended up defeating Nick Aldis, and as he is now your current NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. To me, this should have been your main event of the night. I feel. For whatever reason, I don't know why. Like, especially we'll talk about it later down on the card, but it's kind of glad that it didn't end up like that. But I did. So this was the match. I ended up watching the Cody Rhodes' intro, and then I had to turn it off and leave, so I could not watch this match truly live. Watching Cody's entrance, he came in, he walked to the ring with DDP, Tommy Dreamer, I think Glacier, and then Brandy Rhodes was out there, and then Brandy's father and his brother-in-law.
Yep.
And Pharaoh, his dog. He walked out to the ring with his dog. I had chills watching that entrance. It got me so pumped up. I think, like, everything that this built up to. There was one point during the entrance where you see Tommy Dreamer, like, kind of rub Cody. Like, when they cut to him, it looks like Cody was already crying. And then Tommy Dreamer at one point when they're walking down the ramp, when everyone's cheering for Cody, you hear him you kind of see him lean over and lip in, "This is all you," or like, "You did all of this," or something like that. And I just was like, this should be your main event. Like, I know this was a Cody's and Young Bucks promotion, but I think Cody was probably the bigger voice of it. And it probably, I don't want to say, like, being honest, he probably put up more of the money than the Young Bucks per se, but I'm sure they probably did, each 1/3 or whatever it is. But this match, it was not the most technical wrestling match. Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes are not known as, 5-star wrestling match guys. This was, I think, a great match for both of them. I think this makes the NWA World Championship look so much more important, and it brings prestige back. Not that Nick Aldis was starting to bring back prestige to the title, and especially with how he was defending it. It was defended at a House of Hardcore show a couple months ago against Tommy Dreamer. I thought about going just to watch that match, and I don't think I would have ever considered going to see an NWA title match prior to Nick Aldis holding it, and, like, kind of all the matches and how he's really been trying to push the prestige. I thought this match was awesome. It was exactly what it needed to be. Cody was the right person to win. I'm hoping that he can defend the belt in a similar way to Aldis was, to where he goes to a lot more of these independent shows and defends it kind of locally. And I hope it also gets defended on Ring of Honor, because he has, like, an exclusive contract with Ring of Honor. But sorry, Respass, your thoughts? Also, just as a side note, before I forget, Nick Aldis, he walked out with Jeff Jarrett, Samuel Shaw, Davari, and Tim Storm. So it had the big fight feel. Again, this match I felt should have been your main event.
Yeah, I agree with you. That I felt like it should have been the main event. Again, we'll get into later on why it was lucky, and B, why I feel like they didn't make it the main event. I kind of had a bad feeling when I seen it wasn't the main event, that maybe Cody was not going to win after all. Now, I love Nick Aldis. I don't know much about him, the NWA champion Nick Aldis. I loved him in TNA when they had this. Yeah, I was a fan of his. That British invasion angle that they had. I thought that was really cool. He was a standout guy to me there. So I've enjoyed watching him wrestle before. Again, like you said, neither one of them, you're not going to think of them as 5-star matchmakers, but this match didn't need that. The story made the match. This story made it, a 5-star type of match, just from the feel of the match. It would have been the perfect way to end it. Like you said, it would have been the perfect way to main event the night. Again, I felt like they put it there purposely as kind of the mid-card main event.
Yeah, I think it was to kind of break some stuff up. It was hard to, with everybody that was on this card, it was hard to, pick which ones, and you knew either Cody or the Young Bucks were going to go as your main event.
Right.
But yeah, this match, I think it has everything. Cody got busted open. DDP came out and did a dive-in cutter to Daivari. Earl Hebner was your referee.
Yeah, I think that too, with him kind of even them having him talk before the match. Like, it had all the makings of a main event match. It just wasn't the main event. And honestly, this is a string of, it's going to be 3 straight matches, starting with this one, that I felt a little confused on the order of matches. And I'll get into that more the next 2 matches. You'll kind of understand a little bit more. But yeah. I got a little confused in the match order from the next 3 matches.
Yeah. Peach, I would say for you, I think...
It went from the ladies 4-way into this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you were just saying how, like, the ladies 4-way was probably, like, the match of the night, but then this should have been your main event.
Well, yeah, like the ladies. So when I say ladies, the ladies 4-way was not your main. Was never going to be.
It was not expected to be the match. No, but I mean, it kind of caught Walton off guard to be.
Yeah, it doesn't tier like how there's like on match, off match, on match, off match.
Well, yeah, there were no off matches on this card.
They couldn't.
The closest to an off match was possibly Matt Cross versus MJF.
You could say, there's another one. There's another one. You could say it. You're going to tell me Hangman Page. I'm not saying it's an awful match. I'm saying when you compare it to the other ones, the level of the other matches.
So we'll move right into that because that was the next match. Hangman Page defeated Joey Janelle in a Chicago street fight. Hangman Page is a fucking superstar, and he is... I love his character. He is a phenomenal wrestler. I thought this match was absolutely incredible. It was a Chicago street fight. The one thing they did with this card is mixed every type of wrestling basically in there for whatever type of wrestling you like. You saw it on this card. This was probably, and this is hard to say because of the whole Cody Rhodes winning the NWA title. This was probably the best storyline gimmick because of, at the end of the match, just so we can get it out of the way, if you watch Being the Elite, which is a phenomenal YouTube series by basically the Young Bucks, Hangman Page in Being the Elite killed Joey Ryan. At the end of the match, you have Druids dressed like blow-up penises come out. Joey Ryan is resurrected. Yeah, this is... I sent this to Peachy beforehand because he hadn't seen it. This is my new video that I'm going to show when people say wrestling is fake. Because this is the fun of wrestling. And this is what this match delivered, I think, to me. You had hardcore wrestling through and through. There's... well, let me finish explaining what happened. Joey Ryan then comes out. They do the penis, the Joey Ryan penis flip. I forget what he calls it. And then the Druids, and then Joey Ryan super kicks him, and then the Druids, the penis Druids, carry away Hangman Page. This was professional wrestling in 2018. I loved it. I laughed. The match was incredible. There was a spot where Hangman Page does a powerbomb to Joey Janelle off of the ramp, and I thought Joey Janelle died because he just hit the table wrong, and it looked like his head just smacked off. Peach, you were watching highlights of Penelope Ford. She looked like a superstar during this match. Like, she came in, was doing a bunch of flips, did a jump off the turnbuckle. Hell, you had a Cracker Barrel in there for sponsors. Like, to me, this is... I was going to talk to you guys, but like a topic I want to do for an episode is matches you show people to get them like into professional wrestling. This might be one of them for me. To me, this is like one of my favorite matches of the nights. So, what were you saying about flipping this one?
Okay. First of all, I will admit this was the match I skipped over the most. Purely for a time frame. I had a feeling, Joey Ryan would be involved at the end in some way, so I did skip to the end. I did see a lot of Penelope Ford's spots. Now, I want to kind of, reiterate my point about this match. And I'm going to explain to you why I said what I said. Well, Peach, I want to play a little game here with you. Have you ever heard of Christopher Daniels?
No.
Prior to this, you never heard of Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels. Have you heard of Stephen Amell?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard of Cody Rhodes?
Yes.
Have you heard of Jay Lethal, the Black Machismo?
Yeah, I saw him wrestle somewhere.
Kenny Omega.
Just because of you guys, yes.
Okay, but have you ever heard of Okada?
Because of you guys, yes.
The Young Bucks, Rey Mysterio.
I've seen them wrestle.
Hangman Page or Joey Janela.
Nope.
That was my point. Well, it had nothing to do with the talent or ability of those guys. I'm talking about from a casual fan looking down the card. Other than Matt Cross and MJF, this is probably the other one where nobody, if you're a casual fan, you never heard of these two guys. You probably heard of Joey Ryan before you've heard of these two.
Yeah, most likely just because of the probably he's a YouTube. It's a viral thing.
And that was my only point. It was not that I thought this was going to go. I was just saying, as far as filler matches, a little bit from a casual fan's point, this was more filler match.
But to Mike, to counter your point, and this is where I think they did a good job. They made it a Chicago street fight.
Oh yeah, they did everything perfect with that, with the Joey Ryan tease and everything too. Everything was done very well, and I do expect to watch this match fully. Again, this was another match I did not expect to want to, and I definitely will.
To go back to asking Peachy questions, as a casual fan, what would you rather see? A regular match between Okada, with Okada involved in it, because you know the name, or two people you don't know their names, but they're in a Chicago street fight?
Yeah, just making it a gimmick is a gimmick. Like, it's supposed to add draw to the match.
And your answer?
The Chicago street fight.
Thank you. You did not answer it.
And that's why they added it, the street fight part of it. I understand that. I'm saying from purely looking at a matchup standpoint, just looking at the names in the match, if you're going to consider any of the matches a filler match, that's the closest thing, again, other than Matt Cross and MJF, that you probably have on here. And I won't say the women's, purely because it's the only women's match on the card. So I'm not going to relegate that to filler match or non-filler match.
True. But this match was absolutely, I think Hangman Page, the way he's evolved as a character, I thought he was kind of bland very early on, but the way he's evolved to me is just he's huge. I think his character work is great. He's a great wrestler. Being the Elite has done wonders for him.
Were you expecting them to have that boot talk while it was in the ring? I did skip to that part where they dumped the boots out into the ring. Were you weirdly expecting them to do something where you could hear it talk even though it wasn't talking?
I thought when I saw those happen, so now this is me. I honestly didn't even think the Joey Ryan stuff was going to show up on here. I completely forgot about it as I was watching the match,
right?
And that's what made it so much better for me. Which, maybe I'm just an idiot because I didn't expect it, but that's maybe why I got a little more excitement out of it.
One thing I did love about this pay-per-view, and again, I skipped a lot of the in-between stuff because I was trying to get the whole pay-per-view in. They explained that part of it. They showed you the clips of being the Elite and stuff like that. They showed that part. So I did not know that. And from what I read online and seeing the little things where, at StarCast, apparently Hangman Page finally admitted to killing Joey Ryan, stuff like that. So I'd seen that already prior to it. But I didn't know. I haven't seen Being the Elite. I think Jared, the one episode was on, he said, watch it. It's amazing. You should watch it. And I haven't gotten around to that yet. But it gave me a little bit of context to the match. So I was expecting it a little bit, but I love Joey Ryan. So it made me want to watch it a little bit more for that reason.
And I go back into them telling stories throughout this whole thing. And this is where, again, the story of this match, I think, was absolutely incredible. Because not only did you have the boots that Hangman Page that was talking to him the whole time, he pulled out the phone that he killed Joey Ryan with to start beating Joey Janela with. And, it was so, obviously it wasn't that subtle because he pulled out a phone.
Right.
But that they thought about including that in the match, I think just made it that much better.
Yeah.
Again, there's nothing bad. There's not a whole lot of bad I can say about this pay-per-view.
It's like you said, too, Walt. It gave you that, that cartoony type wrestling. Where not everything took itself so serious throughout this card. Thankfully, they didn't add to Stephen Amell as the Green Arrow. You know what I mean? They didn't cartoonify that match. I just said cartoonify. That match, they left it for other ones, so that was nice.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of kind of cartooning us up, you had your next match, Jay Lethal versus Flip Gordon.
Now, before we get too far in this match, I want to explain what I said earlier about the 3 matches being weirdly out of order. I thought Cody and Nick Aldis was definitely going to be the main event. So when I seen that happen in the middle of the card, I was surprised. Hangman Page and Joey Janela, that's fine. But when they did what we're about to explain what happened in the Jay Lethal match, I was a little shocked that they almost had a joke match and then a joke match. I was a little shocked that they didn't break that up a little bit.
I don't know if this would be considered a... I don't consider the Hangman Page stuff a joke match. That wasn't a joke match, but I see what you're saying.
They were talking boots. You literally just said there was talking boots, and he killed the guy with the phone, and he came out with penis druids. And then the crowd chanted, "Rest in penis," when they carried him out. I
forgot about that. That was... Again, professional wrestling in 2018. I love it.
PG wants to watch All In right now. I see it in his face.
No, I said it all. No, he sent me that clip, and I was like, "Oh, good, I didn't miss anything."
Yeah,
because he said this was the highlight of All In, and I was like, "Oh, all right, I don't need to watch All In ever."
So Jay Lethal ended up defeating Flip Gordon for the Ring of Honor Championship, which was kind of expected. You had some run-ins by Bully Ray, which is continuing a storyline with him and Flip, and then you also had Colt Cabana come in for the save, which is good. Just give him give him what he deserves for being a Chicago native on the card. To the point you're talking about, Mike, about the joke aspect. First off, I really liked when Flip Gordon came out. He came out with Brandy Rhodes. That the great tie-in, especially from a being the elite thing. Early on, Flip was trying to get on the card and was tag teaming with Brandy Rhodes. So that was kind of cool to see her as his manager during this match. But Jay Lethal came out as Black Machismo with Lanny Poffo, and apparently, they said it during the pay-per-view. I don't know if it's true or not, but Jay Lethal came up completely in Macho Man attire, and they said it was the attire Macho Man wore on the first WCW Nitro.
His first appearance on WCW.
First appearance. Yes, that's what it was. So this, to me, I didn't get a chance to fully watch all this match and sit down. Flip is amazing. He's a young guy. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think they just said he just signed an exclusive contract with Ring of Honor, so I'm excited. I've watched more of Being the Elite, so the whole storyline of Flip trying to get onto the card and see him actually on the card was awesome. Kind of great storyline perspective. Jay Lethal is one of the best. Lanny Poffo, I just think he's a weirdo. I don't like... I don't know. He just looks weird to me. And he was throwing frisbees out to the crowd when they first came in. And
I didn't understand that.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because I was like, maybe I just don't know something. Maybe he did that when he was Leaping Lanny Poffo or something like that was his wrestling name?
Probably a QR code to getting him into the Hall of Fame or something. Some website he had out there.
The Black Machismo gimmick, it was cool to see Jay Lethal, especially again. Like, this was basically a culmination of being the Elite more than a cross-promotion type event, but I was fine with it. So, did you watch? I forget. Did you say you watched this match Respass, or was this one of the ones you skipped over?
I love Jay Lethal, so of course I seen this. I will say the whole Brandy Rhodes Flip Gordon thing, it was perfect, and I believe it was Don Callis that kind of explained it. And because I don't watch Being Elite, I kind of paid attention to the lead, and I know the whole concept of the Flip Gordon thing, but he ran down why Brandy Rhodes was out there with him, like, pretty smoothly and quickly, to get me like, oh, okay, I understand it. Like, when she came out, he talked about how, he wanted to get on the show, and he needed to get 3 thumbs up, and the Young Bucks finally came around, but Cody, like, they basically hinted, because Brandy has been such a fan of Flip Gordon, that Cody wouldn't sign off on it for that reason, because they got so close. And I felt like he got it across so well. I love Don Callis as an announcer. I think we went over that with the Okada Omega matches. He's so partial and impartial at the same time. It's crazy. He does it so well. But I got that concept down, I think, before they even got in the ring. Like, he explained it right away. I was like, okay, I get it. The Jay Lethal thing was awesome. Love Black Machismo. I was waiting for, like Ric Flair to come out or something like that, and them like something weird happened where he's going to turn into Flair next after it. That was my point.
That's for All In too.
That was my point, though, where you end a match with penises carrying out Hangman Page, and then you start the next match with a big hand slapping the hell out of Jay Lethal's chest.
Oh my God.
That turned him into Black Machismo. As I was saying, you just went from one match crazy to another match crazy, which is fine, but I felt like they could have split it up a little bit instead of having one right after another.
I can agree with that.
But that's fair enough. I love Black Machismo. I think it was great. It was great with the little Elizabeth Brandy Rhodes, where he was. Did you say you watched this or not?
I did not see that part. No.
Oh my God, it was great. He was carrying her around. He's like pulling her over to his side, and she tries to walk away, and he gets out of the ring again, and she gets in the ring, and she's like, "I'm not Liz. Stop treating me like this." So then she slaps him and turns him back into regular Jay Lethal. Yeah, man. So he went from Black Machismo to regular Jay Lethal to Lanny Poffo getting him again during the match and turning him back into Black Machismo. So again, I said you went from crazy to crazy.
No, I can now agree with that. But then it was, but based off the rest of the match, it would have been a hard match to break up somehow.
Flip Gordon did a Hulk Hogan impression at one point.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, when he was Black Machismo, he's beating him down, and Flip Gordon, he hulked up. First, they said, it's something, they referenced Ultimate Warrior, and I'm thinking, that's wrong. This is Hulk Hogan. This is not Ultimate Warrior. That was one time. I don't know which one of them said it. They said, this is his ultimate comeback or something like that. Or a comeback of the Warrior or something. And then he gets up and then he does the whole pointing. And they're like, it's actually an immortal comeback or something like that. I'm like, yeah, it was Hogan the whole time. But, yeah, it was cool. They did the Elizabeth thing. The Hulk Hogan thing. Even at the beginning of the match, he did, the whole, hesitant handshake with Lanny Poffo, and they were referencing when him and Hulk Hogan shook hands for the Mega Powers and stuff, where he wasn't sure about it, and then he goes and does the same thing to Flip Gordon at the beginning of the match. It was cool. The Colt Cabana thing too, not only with him being the hometown guy, but it also came back off of the final two from the Battle Royal. So it connected the pre-show with the show just as much as, like you said, with Bully Ray and Flip Gordon and then having their thing and everything. So it connected a lot of stuff. I think this match was done for being mostly a joke with the Black Machismo and everything like that. I think it hit a lot of spots on it.
Yeah, there's no way I saw Lethal losing the title at this pay-per-view.
Right.
So, your next match of the evening, Kenny Omega versus Pentagon. So the big thing with this match was, so we'll talk about what happened afterwards in a second. To me, and this sounds very bad to say, it was a standard Kenny Omega match, and it was awesome. This was probably the first time I really got to sit down and watch Pentagon. And he looks fucking crazy. He looks scary. Legitimately. Like, his look is awesome. I've heard how much of a good wrestler he is, especially from the luchador style, and it delivered. It was not a main event match. It was a perfect match for its placement on the card, and I think Omega knew that, and I think that's why they had the match they did, to not completely overshadow and completely steal the show, because Kenny Omega and Pentagon, I don't think, have to do that on a show like this. But it was a standard Omega match, so it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It's the first time I've ever seen Pentagon, so it made me want to see more from both of them. Yep. You know, if I didn't already see the Omega Okada matches, it would make me want to see more of both guys. You know,
yes, and I think that's what this pay-per-view did a lot of. I think.
Yeah, and this would have been the perfect spot where Cody and Nicky Aldis was, if they were going to do a mid-main event kind of thing. I think what they gave you was just enough, but it's not going to overshadow the main event kind of thing. Like you said, I mean, the way it ended made it, that much better. But the match as a whole, again, I was watching it and I'm like, I got to see more Pentagon now. I mean, that's. I came out of this match thinking I've already known he's a big deal from what everybody said, but never to the point that I'm like, ooh, I got to sit down and watch his matches. That made me want to sit down and watch his matches. And I'm assuming
know who his brother is.
They said was
Phoenix.
Ray Phoenix, right?
From the main, Ray Phoenix.
From the main event. They mentioned it in the main event. That was one of the parts I actually did see the main event. But you've seen this whole match, right? The Omega.
Yeah. Yes.
Dude, that move on the side, his little Pentagon's little they called it the Pentagon Fear Factor. Driver? The Fear Factor, I think is what they kept calling it. Oh yeah. When he did that on apron work, that was apron work right there, Pete. Yes. You want to see some good apron work? Oh my god, dude! When he hit that,
the Pentagon driver was awesome. Oh god, such a good finisher. Yeah, but that's exactly what this match did. It made me want to watch more Pentagon.
Yeah.
So I guess the bigger story, though, other than the match, which I think will probably overshadow the match, was the lights went out. And it was the second time in the evening the lights went out, because the lights also went out when the penis droids came out. And then you saw Pentagon laying in the ring, but then he gets up and starts attacking Omega. You then take a look at Pentagon and notices he has different tattoos. Pentagon then hits Omega with a code breaker. Pentagon takes his mask off, and it's Chris Jericho. That was awesome. I did not think we would see Jericho. There's been talk about how Jericho's never going to wrestle in North America, especially with his WWE stuff. It was so cool to see Jericho attack Omega. It kind of sucks that they're building up for another match just on the Jericho Cruise, instead of I'm hoping it goes to another match against Jericho versus Omega in New Japan. Not necessarily because Jericho is your current IWGP Intercontinental Champion, but obviously I don't want to be title for title just because I don't. New Japan's not going to have Omega hold both titles, but just to get another match, because I think you've had something similar with Nah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Ospreay versus Okada. They had a match when Okada was champion, the junior heavyweight versus the heavyweight. But that was awesome. Jericho, he looks like, and then here. So, did you hear anything about what Jericho did?
What do you mean?
Not for the match, but like his travel arrangements and stuff like that.
No.
So this is all. It was in Chicago, and he probably hit that. He probably hit him at like I'd say the pay-per-view went to 11. This was probably happening at 9 o'clock, 9:30, something like that. Oh no, this was happening closer to 10.
This is closer to 10. Yeah.
Yeah, closer to 10. Jericho got on a private flight and flew to a Fozzy concert in Kansas City. Didn't miss the show. So
Wow.
for Jericho keeping it like, yeah, Fozzy has a show in Kansas City. There's no way I'm going to be in Chicago that night.
Right.
He got on a private jet and flew out to Kansas City for the concert, and he did the concert
awesome.
in his full Pentagon makeup.
Really?
He didn't. Yeah, he did. Yep, he kept that Pentagon makeup on and did the. He didn't have the mask on, but he
Right.
like the. Yeah, he did it in the
That's
full
great.
makeup. It just shows how dedicated Jericho I think still is to the craft.
Yeah, and I think
he
along with a lot of these other guys understands how important this can be for the business as a whole.
Yep.
And I know you said you want this in New Japan. I thought it was great that he said, "I'll see you at the Jericho Cruise." Yeah, because the 6-man tag I think is what's supposed to be the main event of that cruise, right? And they're involved in the 6-man tag.
It's Alpha Club versus Bullet Club, so it's Jericho and the Bucks versus, I want to say, Omega, Marty, and Hangman. I think that's who was on that. It leads in.
I thought it was great to set up something that wasn't just the normal, because the whole night was about this show and continuing storylines from things you haven't seen. So for it to be a Jericho Cruise is what that had to do with, it's like, huh? You're kind of like, what? Now, what is this Jericho Cruise? You know what I mean? Like, if you don't know what it is, it makes you now say, what is he talking about, the Jericho Cruise? Now you're looking it up. It's a free advertisement for it, obviously.
So one of the things that, and this is why I want to go on the Jericho Cruise, but I don't, is one of the complaints I kept on seeing on Reddit from the All In weekend was that wrestling fans need to wear deodorant. And that is the reason why I don't want to go on the Jericho Cruise, because I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of similar fans that don't wear deodorant.
Stop generalizing, Walt.
It was on the internet, so it has to be true. It definitely was a perfect tie-in for the Jericho Cruise, and like that was awesome. It's just I would like to, because of how good their first match was. I just want to see another one in New Japan. So yeah, there was that match. So this is the one match the other match I probably fully didn't get to watch was Okada versus Marty Scurll. So Okada ended up beating Scurll. A lot of the build-up was, and I saw a lot of this on Being the Elite, was since Marty Scurll's a junior heavyweight, everyone said he was going to get his ass kicked to Okada. And one of the running jokes Okada kept doing was he kept on telling Marty to go to 205. Which I saw one clip from the match, and Okada has Scurll in position for the Rainmaker, and just motions to the camera 205, and then Scurll just hits him. I thought that was perfect.
I actually did not understand that reference until now you're telling me. So
yeah, so Okada's been making jokes about Marty going to 205 Live just because he's a light heavyweight and to he's not in his league, kind of.
Right.
Also, like, the one thing I did see was the pop that Okada got was incredible. And I love to see that. That is I've seen, like, so in the New Japan shows when you see Okada come out, the pop in America, the ones that were in America, were huge, and it's like, all right, so that's kind of expected, but the reception he got, man, was absolutely. This guy is he's. I go between him, Omega, and AJ Styles as the best wrestlers in the world, but like Okada just sits at. I go back and forth with all of them, but Okada, like, his presence is just, it's incredible. And I love, like, again, for not seeing the match, I saw the stare down. I was starting to watch it before we came on. In the beginning of the match, they do a stare down, and Okada is just intimidating as shit. He's had this, like, character change kind of from almost like the Rainmaker to this really goofy guy that he was kind of during the whole G1 with balloons, and he's got the red hair, and he's got pants on instead of his boy short trunks. But he is incredible. So please, Mike, explain how the match was.
I'm going to give you my few complaints with the match. This is one of the ones that I felt like it went on too long. I feel like the match was a little too long, and looking at the time,
I'll comment on that during the next match.
Okay. I felt like the match, it could have done what it did in half the time, 2/3 the time.
It was your longest match on the card at 26 minutes.
Yeah. And I did.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
And that's what I'm looking at right now on Wikipedia, and again, it's on Wikipedia, so it must be true. But it felt like the longest match, and I felt like when I was watching it, like, this is going on a little too long. What?
Side note, real fast. This is not related to all it. So we're recording this on Monday night.
Right.
Undertaker's on Raw with Shawn Michaels.
Oh yeah. Well, if you pay attention, you know. They announced him going to be there. It's in promotion to Super Showdown with Triple H.
We talked about that like last week, and it's shitty that they're rehashing that. But I'm sorry, continue.
I thought the match went on a little too long. I thought the Okada match being the match before the main event instead of Omega Pentagon was amazing. And like you said, because Okada, the reception Okada got was well deserved. I mean, he got a huge pop. But you would think that the Pentagon-Omega match has more of a big draw, especially knowing that Jericho's going to be at the end of it, as at least the match before the main event kind of thing. So I felt like they put Okada on next to kind of, for maybe an audience that doesn't know Okada as much as Omega, which is funny because you feel like if you know one, you probably know both.
That crowd knew.
No, the crowd did. I'm talking about any casual fan might know Omega more, or even Pentagon more, because if you don't watch New Japan, you might watch Impact. You know, so the Marty Scurll Okada
Lucha Underground, I think, is on. I think Pentagon is in. That's on Netflix, so you can have stumbled across it.
Yeah, so them two, you know, they have a little bit more notoriety when it comes to a casual fan than Okada or Scurll might. So I love the fact that it was next to last Okada. It was well deserved. I just felt like it was a little too long. And then again, we'll talk about this next match, but I really thought it was too long after the way the night ended. But it, you know, Okada, how can you not love Okada? And it's actually the first full match I've ever seen of Marty Scurll. So I enjoyed him. He did one. He actually cracked him across the face with his umbrella, and then I'm pretty sure that led into a Rainmaker of his own, and he got a close 3 count where you're like, oh, they were gonna, like, it made you think for a second that they were going to have Okada lose, and then there was another moment where he actually opened his umbrella and it said "All In" on it. Like,
nice.
Yeah, so it was, you know, there was a couple of really cool spots, but it just, I felt like it drug on a little too long.
There's two wrestlers that I kind of put, Omega Okada got me really into watching, like, New Japan, I forget who really got me into Ring of Honor. Actually, us going to Ring of Honor. Young Bucks actually got me kind of watching more Ring of Honor and, like, some of that stuff. But Marty Scurll and Kushida, they're, like, the two guys I kind of put in that are kind of were off the beaten track a little bit that I just love, and Marty Scurll. I remember watching him. It was one of the Super Card of Honors. I forget which one, but it was Marty Scurll versus Adam Cole for the I think the TV title. I love Marty Scurll's character. I love this villain persona. I think he's great in the ring. I like how he does the finger manipulation and just like the way he makes it sound like he's breaking them. It reminds me of like if you want to relate it to someone, how Pete Dunne wrestles in WWE. Right. I think it's a very similar. They're both British, so it kind of makes sense. Marty Scurll's character that he plays, or well, not plays or whatever, on being the Elite is so funny. If you weren't aware, like Marty Scurll did a karaoke event during Starrcast, and it's just so funny. Like Marty Scurll he's one guy I hope. Like, I would like to see him in WWE just so that he can get his payday and get the recognition he deserves. I love him. And I think he's a character that would transfer really well. So Okada ended up winning that one. So then your last match of the evening, your main event, was the Golden Elite of Matt and Nick Jackson and Kota Ibushi, versus Rey Mysterio, Phoenix, and what is it? Is it Bandito? Bandito. Was your main event with the Golden Elite getting the win. So, Respass, what was the question you had asked me prior to us recording in relation to this match? Due to the way you watched the pay-per-view, you thought it might have been something with the way you watched it. So what was the question?
Well, since you've already ratted me out on this, I obviously did not watch it in the most legal of ways. And when I was watching it, it kind of got cut off. At the end of the night, I believe it was Don Callis is pretty much like trying to close out the show and just didn't have enough time. And it just stopped, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. I obviously where I'm watching it just didn't get the full broadcast. So obviously, I asked you, and I said, did it get cut off for you too? Since you watched the paid version of it, which sadly you said yes, it did.
So apparently there was a timing issue with the event. Now, like, this is going to sound weird, but I'm glad something like this happened. Because this event was going, at least to me, as perfect as you would want an initial event like this by these guys. Everything was going perfectly, and this was the one kind of wrinkle in it. And it will allow them to make it better for the next one. And that's definitely kind of what I think they needed because of how well everything ended up playing out for this event. So apparently what happened was, you brought up Okada and Scurll felt long. Right. Apparently, this was reported online. I think Alvarez from Wrestling Observer, as well as Meltzer, said that the Okada Scurll match went 12 minutes over. And at 26 minutes, that's a long time. And that for that last match, they rushed all of their major spots to get in 11 minutes. And they apparently, the pay-per-view was supposed to end at like in our time, in like Eastern time, was supposed to end at 9:58. They had to talk to the pay-per-view provider going out to push it to 9:59 in order to try to
10:59, right? Eastern.
10:59. I'm sorry, 10:59. To squeeze everything in, and they finished the match with 30 seconds left, I think. And so the 30 seconds that you saw was that whole rush closeout that they didn't even get to say goodbye, the announcers. But they got the match finished, which would have been a disaster if they did not get that match finished. Right. I think that would have definitely turned this from what this did, the current day WrestleMania 1. That could have definitely changed that if they did not finish that match. Because TNA did something like that to where they got the timing wrong and completely screwed it up.
Yeah.
And you didn't get to see it. And it's weird again, like, in the world we live in, like, especially with the WWE network, WWE's not concerned about time limits anymore.
Right.
They obviously try to close it probably more so for the site, like the venue that they're at, but they're not worried about pay-per-view anymore. So they can run over if they want to. They can run over as long as they want. But this error was good because I think it's going to make the next one that they do even better. The match now to talk about the match itself, it was a huge spot fest. Rey Mysterio, he looks like a fucking star again. He came dressed out as Wolverine.
Yeah, that was awesome.
The Phoenix, he looks awesome. Like I've seen clips of like him and Pentagon together. Bandino looks fantastic. But it was just a huge spot fest through and through. The idea that I've read this online, I think I've read this on Reddit. The fact that they ended the show with the Meltzer driver was very perfect because that's how this show got made because of a comment Meltzer said. Yeah, it sucks that it was so short. Like, I forget, like, a lot of the spots that and, like, even, like, if you listen... So, I was watching this match after I knew that it was... they were running late.
Right.
So, I heard, like, you can kind of overhear, like, we gotta go home soon, like, all that stuff. And you see, like, Rey Mysterio and the guys are just, like, they're just not even, like, pretending to, like, fight each other. They're just walking to the spots they need to go to for the spots to make sure they get done. Somebody vibrating?
Yeah, my phone.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you for contributing. But yeah, this match was, as a main event, it under-delivered because of what they had to rush to get through, just because I was like, okay, spot. Like, that's all it was, and it was really cool to see. Like, this is a match I would show somebody just to say, hey, here's wrestling. Like, this is pretty cool, because it was, like, 10 minutes long.
Right.
So it's not a big attention span. And a lot of cool stuff happened during it. The Golden Elite got the win. Even so, Mike, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, this...
Oh, did you watch this one? I forgot.
I did. I was falling asleep. I did. I heard the end, and then I actually rewatched the end right before we came on, because I was kind of listening to it while I was falling asleep, and it sounded rushed. So I watched it, and that the finish was rushed. It was obvious that they were trying to get that in. I liked what I seen out of Bandito. I think he went to that headstand thing at the one point during the beginning of the match. I seen maybe...
Oh, yeah, that was real cool.
I seen maybe like the first 4 or 5 minutes. I didn't realize I was halfway through the match when I started falling asleep. But I part of me was thinking they almost made this the main event for a reason, because it was going to be a big spot fest, where if they had to cut time from a match, the fact that this was going to be a spot fest more than anything else...
There was no meaning behind this match.
Yeah, and it was perfect way to end it. You had the Star Draw, Rey Mysterio, the Golden Elite. You have Rey Fenix and Bandino, who's going to do all this crazy stuff. And if you have to squeeze in 8 minutes or 22 minutes, they can make it work. And I felt like if the night was going too quick, or if whatever happened throughout the night, that this match could have ended the night the way they did. And you don't realize it until it happened. And then I'm like, that makes complete sense. If they had to rush the end of Cody, Nick Aldis, the way they rushed it, that would have made this night feel so much worse. You
didn't get the celebration. You didn't get anything.
Exactly.
You would not have got... Yeah. Like, and the one thing you didn't get with this, when there were videos online of, all their families came out. They did a bunch of thank yous. Omega did the goodbye and good night bang. But we didn't get to see that on pay-per-view. It was only live in the audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have been a disaster if you finished Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis with this.
Yeah, and that's Omega. You got Omega Pentagon. If you didn't get to see the Jericho spot happen.
Omega Pentagon was never going to main event this, just because
I'm just kind of going down the list of the other, I guess, you don't know kind of things. Like Okada match, if they want to end it with Okada, you had to get his stuff in. where I felt like the Young
Hangman
Bucks.
Page and Joey Ryan. Like how embarrassing would it have been if they did not have the Drew Penis?
Yeah, I mean that would have ruined the whole show.
That would have been a huge.
But this was the perfect. It was the perfect combination of guys where it like you said, it was not storyline driven. It was not going to be a technical, wrestling match to the point that they needed time to make that feel real. They could come out and just jump all over from everywhere. This match could have been done in 5 minutes, to be honest with you. They hit their spots in 5 minutes and then be done. So it was perfect to put it in the end, even though it was confusing throughout the night. Like, why is this last? Why isn't Cody and Aldis? And now you're like, thank God this was last. Thank God it was not Cody and Nick Aldis. But I will say the one thing about the night, with the way this ended, they obviously have work to do. There were spots throughout a lot of the cuts. I noticed that interview with... did you see the interview with Nick Aldis early on the night? He mentions the 10 pounds of gold, and you see a very small sliver of it on screen. Yeah. Like, you barely see it on TV. There was they talked about the crowd at one point, and they were showing I guess they don't call it a Titantron, but they were showing the thing in the back. They weren't showing the crowd, and they were like, look at this crowd. And I'm like, they're not showing the crowd.
I forgot to mention this in the beginning with it, but the look of it felt like a big event. Like, the quality looked better than a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. And I've watched some, and I don't know if it's because of the Sears Center, their that ability to have video equipment set up properly and things like that. But the production quality looked phenomenal. Like, that's where I said, like, the good thing that this happened, like, that got rushed at the end was because I thought everything else was kind of almost perfect. Like, I thought the stream quality was great. I know, like, people were complaining there were issues early on with Fight. Like, I think... Fight got overloaded, which is probably expected, which sucks. But once I got the stream up and running, I thought the stage looked perfect. Like, I thought everything they did there was perfect. And even I forget if you joked about it or where it was, but they got sponsorships for the event, like Cracker Barrel, TGI Fridays, and stuff like that. They weren't overdone. Like, they were just on the side of the ring apron.
Yeah. I didn't even know that they were sponsored until I seen certain angles of certain matches.
But and the closest you got to this is a real, they paid a lot for this, was when Hangman Page brought in a Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. And
it just fit with the match, though. Like, it wasn't. It felt like it wasn't forced. It was good. Yeah, this was absolutely incredible. This is my this is why I'm happy I paid for it, because now I can bring it up on Fight whenever I want to, and I just want to kind of sit down and watch kind of like a older wrestling match, just to kind of have something on in the background to have. My highlight of the night, all the women's match kind of stole the show for me, just because I didn't know what to fully expect with that one, and it was great. The moment for me, though, was not Cody winning the belt, but Cody's entrance. Him walking from the back to the front, the whole crowd reaction to him, his excitement. I thought it was so cool. Like, that was the moment where I wish we would have went out for it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess I'll give what I thought my match of the night. Now, obviously, I didn't see everything. In a weird twist of everything I've said so far, Jay Lethal, Flip Gordon. First of all, I love Jay Lethal. I love the fact that it was half serious, half cartoony, old school. There was a lot of, the whole Hogan, Macho Man, Elizabeth thing to it. You had Bully Ray. You had some storyline with it, with the Flip Gordon, Brandy Rhodes thing, with the Bully Ray, Flip Gordon thing. Flip Gordon had just, eliminated Bully Ray at the beginning of the night. Then you have Cole Cabana coming out, the local guy. It all made sense, where I felt like maybe like the Cody Rhodes with the Diamond Dallas Page and Sean Daivari thing. Like, I felt like it was just like, it almost felt like they found people that want to be a part of it and couldn't wrestle in the Battle Royal, and then they got added to it, you know, where the Bully Ray, Colt Cabana thing, it was connected to stuff that happened at the beginning of the night, the other stuff that's happened to lead in.
And it's storyline driven from Ring of Honor, because I believe there is a current angle with Bully Ray against kind of Flip Gordon, because Bully Ray is back being that heelish general manager figure, I think.
Right.
And then it's also, he has something against Colt Cabana as well, so like it definitely continued that story.
Yeah.
But a lot of the storylines that were driven from here was all from being the Elite.
Right. But that's the thing. Like, I didn't know the storyline, but they were able to explain it to me, you know, throughout that match. I felt like everything that match where you said about showing something to somebody, I would probably show the Battle Royal and then that match throughout the night. If I could somehow combine both of them, because it's almost a continuation from each other, if I could combine them two, that's the highlight of the night for me, because it encapsulated everything about wrestling. You had a female wrestler trying to squat possibly the biggest guy in the match. You know, you had all this stuff. You had Flip Gordon, who's been trying to fight his way in, sneak his way into the match. You forgot about him. He comes out later. You know, it's just everything from those two as a whole. It was amazing with this night.
Respass for you. It's worthwhile seeing. There's I forget what it's called, but I watched all the episodes. It's like an all-in documentary by Cody Rhodes, Nick, and Matt Jackson, like just talking about like the backstage stuff, tickets going on sale, things like that. In that documentary, they talk about the Battle Royal, and they say, yeah, there's a female in it. We didn't make a big deal about it because it's not worth making a big deal about it. She's just one of the competitors that wants a shot at the Ring of Honor title. She wanted in. We allowed her to go in. She has the same shot as everyone else. And again, like I think we talk about it somewhere else in another episode, but like kind of the intergender stuff, kind of making a comeback. And you see sort of like that, like she's in that Battle Royal with men, and she's not getting special treatment. Yeah. You saw it during the Hangman Page match with he super kicks Penelope Ford, I think, in the face. Yeah. Because she got involved, and like that's where it's like I definitely get there's a fine line that you can't cross, especially with like abuse and things like that. You definitely want to stay away from that. But like when you see something like that, like a super kick from Hangman Page, because after she got involved in it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's like you can suspend disbelief a little bit, but I don't know. It's a very touchy subject, and I get why like WWE avoids it.
Right.
But yeah, I thought this was absolutely incredible. They knocked it out of the park completely. I think this sets up like this makes, like I said earlier in the beginning, this makes the Madison Square Garden show that much more of a must-see, must-be at event. And I hope All In 2 comes, and I definitely think they're going to travel. I think they're going to not necessarily stay in Chicago. I hope they hit up Philly again for selfish reasons, or I hope they pick a place that we can easily get to so that we can go next year.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about driving to Chicago, so yeah, anywhere that's a little bit closer drive would be nice.
Yeah, but I don't know how they're gonna follow up on this. It was such a good job, like the way it was produced. The matches they set up worked out really well. Obviously, all the wrestlers are great, and I think this just puts this on people's radars.
Yeah.
As, this was a thing. Like, I was, I forget if it was Saturday or Sunday or something. I was with somebody who's like a somewhat casual wrestling fan. It was like, hey, what's this All In thing or something going on over the weekend? And I'm like, sit down. Let me talk to you for a little bit. I'm like, I got it on my iPad. We can watch it. No, so, Peach, what are your thoughts on it before you go to sleep?
Can I bring my dog?
No.
Oh, come on.
Okay, that's... Thanks for...
Well, I didn't see it. I don't... Like, yeah, if it goes and comes close to, I'll go to the live event. But it's not like I'm going to go out of my way to watch it.
I think, like, and this is where, like, I get annoyed and frustrated with that comment piece just because of how, like, good I think this is, and it's, I think Mike brought it up earlier, like, I want wrestling to become more relevant and, like, more commonplace and kind of, like, represent how good it actually is today. But I have these blinders on that I just get frustrated with you as, like, a cat, like, I'm not trying to say this negatively, like, it's just, like, because of your style, and that's what the majority of the, you know, the population is. I'm like, well, why don't you like this? Why, like, after hearing all we just talked about, why don't you want to watch this? That's dumb. Like, I don't get this. This was the greatest wrestling thing ever. But you do have to get something to get to get people in to start watching it. I think this definitely has some of that, but I think there is still a lot of work to go into in order to get more casual wrestling or, like, casual people into watching wrestling like this on a normal basis.
Right. There has to be some kind of, like, freemium, like, for wrestling, like putting it on, you know, SmackDown on regular TV. That is what got me into more wrestling.
Yep. But yeah, I don't, and that's why I don't know what the answer to that is. Like that, so that's what I'm excited to see how this does from, like, a profit standpoint, like how much money they make off of it, you know, all that stuff, to see either one, it shows how big the professional wrestling community is, or two, it shows how much of an impact they had on more casual people. Like the next All In, I want to do a like a party like how we do for WrestleMania and, like, SummerSlam. Have everyone over, come and watch it, something like that. Like, I don't know if I could have done it for this one because there wasn't, like, especially a lot of the names and stuff. It's hard for people to get it because still, like, with WWE and WrestleMania, it's like, oh, the Undertaker's there. You remember the Undertaker from 20 years ago. Triple H, John Cena, all these big names. So, any other final thoughts on a Respass? Or we are already close to 2 hours for this episode, so.
I'm just excited for what the future holds. This is definitely going to be some type of launch pad, but yeah, I would like it to somehow, you know, hook people like PG, you know, in the future.
I think the Rhodes and the Young Bucks, what they wanted to achieve with this, I think they did.
Absolutely.
I definitely think they did, and, you know, I know they're going to listen to this. I know they download, so, you know, congratulations, guys. You did great job.
Yeah, awesome job.
Yes. So I guess with that being said, we'll just wrap it up. I guess next week we go back to our normal show. We don't have a topic picked out, so it's back to normal. So if you have a topic that you wanted us to talk about, I actually have an idea of one that I'll talk about off air, just in case we don't decide not to do it. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed the last couple episodes that we've done, because it was a lot of, you know, more unique stuff we were trying to spread out and do and try to, you know, I don't even know. It's back to awkward Walton sign-off, so that's we're really back to normal, guys. We're really hitting our stride.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll figure out what we're going to do for next week's episode. But I guess until next week, guys, have a good week, and we will catch you guys later. Have a good one.
Jesus Christ.